When someone dies today, we bury them. We visit the grave, we stand there in silence, we pray. But when someone died in ancient times, they buried them too. Except they didn't just pray, they talked. And the terrifying part, the dead talked back. And modern science just confirmed exactly how. Something answered. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, mechanically. And if you click away before 90 seconds, you'll miss the discovery that rewrites everything. 30,000 years ago, something extraordinary was happening. In caves across Europe, Africa, and Asia, people weren't just burying their dead, they were performing specific sounds, specific layouts, specific substances, and they were doing it in locations chosen for one reason. They made voices echo back. You chose this spot because it made the dead sound alive. Number 7 on our list will completely change how you think about death. But first, the discovery that started all of this. In 2023, a team of acoustic archaeologists mapped 60 prehistoric cave sites and found something that should have been impossible to ignore for decades. The spots with the most paintings, the most sacred art, were almost always the spots with the strongest echo. The ancients didn't paint just anywhere, they painted where the walls talked back. Think about what that means. You're a hunter, 30,000 years ago. You speak a name into the darkness. The cave returns your own voice, altered, lower, longer, layered, like someone speaking through the stone. That isn't coincidence, that's a communications technology. And it gets stranger, because the rituals weren't just about sound. Ancient death rituals across nearly every culture shared 3 specific ingredients. Researchers call these the 3 gateways. Gateway 1, altered state, whether it was rhythmic drumming, deliberate hyperventilation, or psychoactive plants. The living person's brain had to cross a threshold. Modern neuroscience has a name for what happened. The default mode network goes quiet. The part of your brain responsible for your sense of self simply switches off. And in that silence, something else gets loud. Voices, visions, presence. Gateway 2, symbolic death objects. Every major burial site contained objects placed precisely. From Shanidar Cave in Iraq to Sungir in Russia, not scattered, placed, ochre on the body, tools pointed in specific directions. Flowers, actual flowers, laid deliberately. The dead were being equipped for somewhere. Gateway 3, acoustic resonance. This is where it locks together. The rituals happened in echo chambers, intentionally, because echo strips away the source of a sound. You don't hear a direction, you hear a presence. Researchers played back reconstructed ritual sounds in these same caves. They described the experience as profoundly disorienting. Inhabited, the cave sounds alive, and to a brain already in an altered state. That isn't a feeling. That's a fact. Now, here's where ancient ritual and cutting-edge neuroscience collide. In 2019, psychologists at Johns Hopkins published research. Psilocybin, found in mushrooms discovered at multiple burial sites, produces one specific measurable effect above all others: the dissolution of the boundary between self and other. You stop feeling like a separate entity, you feel continuous with everything around you. In that state, in a dark resonant cave, surrounded by the bones and possessions of someone you loved, the echo of your own voice doesn't sound like your voice anymore. It sounds like theirs. That isn't delusion. That is a highly reproducible neurological experience. Ancient humans had discovered how to trigger it on purpose. They built a machine for talking to the dead, made of stone, sound, and chemistry. And it worked exactly as intended. These weren't isolated experiments. Here are 7 sites that prove this was a global, deliberate technology. 1. Lascaux, France. The cave paintings cluster in the highest echo chambers. Not coincidence. Mapped and confirmed. 2. El Castillo, Spain. Handprints dated 40,000 years ago. Placed specifically where clapping produces a full second echo. 3. Chavin de Huantar, Peru. An entire underground temple designed acoustically. So that ritual, drums fill every corridor simultaneously. The dead speak from every direction. 4. Newgrange, Ireland. A passage tomb aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, but also built so that sound spirals through the chamber. Designed for voices. 5. Çatalhöyük, Turkey. The dead were buried under the floor of the house. The living ate above their ancestors, slept above their ancestors, dreamed above their ancestors, deliberately keeping them in the sensory field. 6. Shanidar Cave, Iraq. Neanderthals buried their dead with flowers and animal bones. not even anatomically modern humans. The ritual precedes our species. It may be the oldest thing humans ever did. 7. Kraków Spadzista, Poland. This is the one. Researchers found a burial site. The deceased were arranged facing a specific depression in the cave floor. That depression produces a phenomenon called an acoustic standing wave. When you speak into it at a specific frequency, the sound doesn't echo, it hovers. It fills the air around you with no apparent source. Ancient humans found the one spot in that cave where the air itself becomes a voice. They put their dead there on purpose. Here's what no one is saying loudly enough. These weren't primitive attempts at something we've now surpassed. These were solutions. Ancient humans had the same problem we have. The people they loved disappeared. The ones who carried the knowledge, gone. The ones who carried the stories, gone. The ones who carried the authority, gone. And so they built interfaces, carefully engineered, deliberately located, chemically enhanced. That allowed the living brain to access something that felt indistinguishable from contact. Modern grief therapy is currently rediscovering this. Psilocybin-assisted sessions for bereavement, showing the same core results across clinical trials. Patients report conversations with deceased loved ones that feel more real than memory. That resolve things that years of conventional therapy couldn't touch. The ancients weren't wrong about what death feels like from the inside. They just had better architecture for dealing with it. The hardest thing about losing someone isn't the absence. It's that the relationship doesn't stop. Your brain keeps generating them. In dreams, in voices you almost hear. In the moment before you remember. Ancient humans decided that wasn't a malfunction. It was a door, and they spent 40,000 years learning how to open it. Whether you think they were reaching something real or building the most sophisticated psychological technology in human history. Either answer is extraordinary. If this made you think of someone, leave their name in the comments. You don't have to say anything else, just their name.